Do you know BRICS and G7 are two of the most significant global multilateral groups? Only Russia was common to both the groups till 2013. After Crimean annexation in 2014, Russia was excluded from G8 and the group became G7. Today, let's make an attempt to learn the comparisons between BRICS and G7 nations. BRICS and G7 are two significantly economic and political groups in the world. BRICS comprises Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. G7 includes Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK, USA, plus European Union as a permanent guest. The priorities and approaches of these two groups are different and their relationship is not explicitly confrontational. The BRICS nations are characterized by their large populations, increasing trade and rapid economic growth. They offer an alternative bloc for emerging economies. In contrast, the G7 countries are historically the world's largest economies. They focus on maintaining economic hegemony and promoting a rules-based international order. Let's compare them in economic, demographic and geopolitical terms. Let's have a look at the key statistics. BRICS nations have a combined GDP of around $26 trillion with an average growth rate of 6.2%. And that makes a 21% share in global trade as per the latest data. Whereas G7 nations have a combined GDP of around $46 trillion with an average growth rate of 1.1%. Their share in global GDP is 27% with a share of 44% in global trade. Let's have a look at the historical contexts of the BRICS and G7 nations. The G7 was formed as G8 in 1975 as an informal association of the 7 democratic industrialized countries plus the European Union. The G7 coordinates on global policy and international issues like in trade, security, economics, and climate change. On the other hand, the BRICS, formalized as BRIC in 2006. South Africa was accepted as a full member at the BRIC Foreign Ministers meeting in New York in 2010, forming BRICS. The BRICS countries represent emerging economies. G7 nations have an average of $55,000 as per capita income, while BRICS nations have an average per capita income of $6,000. G7's contribution to the world economy is predicted to decrease to 27.8% by 2028, while the BRICS to account for 35%. For the first time, in 2020, the contributions from BRICS countries and the G7 to global economic growth were close. Since then, the performance of the G7 bloc has been declining. The strong growth of BRICS nations recently is due to China and India's performances. According to the latest IMF data, the BRICS countries will contribute 32.1% of the world's growth, compared to the G7's 29.9%. Now population and demographics of BRICS and G7 countries. The BRICS nations have a combined population of 3.24 billion people, while G7 nations have around 800 million. BRICS represent 40% of global population and G7 only 10%. The median age of countries in G7 and BRICS varies significantly. Japan has the highest median age in G7's category. Russia is the oldest member among BRICS nations demographically. This is part 1 of 2-part comparison series on BRICS versus G7 countries. And part 2 is coming soon. Subscribe Polity Gyan for more.